From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
wake up, wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up War Chant, presented by Zaxby's
Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What's up, everybody? It's Wake Up War Chant presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan Hajavandi alongside Corey S. Clark, coming to you from the Southside offices of WarChant.com. We work for that website, by the way. Use the promo code WarChant30 for 30 free days of access. Get yourself hooked up. Link into the ultimate Seminole sports source. Corey, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
Good. I had a choice there. I could have said that we're going to have a guest on later, Larry Williams from Tiger Illustrated, or I could have asked you how you were. I decided to go with that.
We need to get some. I think we need to get some housekeeping out of the way, since I will be at the Braves game later today.
Okay.
And it's probably going to be an all-day affair.
Okay.
I don't know how we're going to do a show.
Okay.
I'm throwing that out there on you now. I want you to ruminate on that.
Okay.
Kind of figure out what you want to do. I'll be in a truck full of guys driving down to the game, so I can't call you on my way. I probably won't be in any position to talk after the game, not in any coherent manner, which might be a better show anyway, if you get inebriated Corey. So just throwing that out there. There is, I know it's a big week.
It's a Renegade Express
But we could always make the Renegade Express the Friday show, is what I was thinking. That's just me throwing that out there, Aslan. Or have somebody fill in. Ira Schafel can fill in for a day and answer questions. It's your call.
Yeah,
you're the showrunner. You're the producer.
I think we need to give Ira more FaceTime, and I think he wouldn't mind it. But then when I ask him to fill in, he doesn't seem that.
Do it. It doesn't matter. You still do it. Tell him he's filling in. We can push Renegade Express back to Friday if he's not comfortable with that. But we definitely need him to fill in. Wednesday for Thursday's show.
Maybe we'll do two birds with one stone. I can make it a showtime. I can do it as a video thing, and I can just strip it out, make it the podcast as well.
Booyah.
Look at that. See,
Booyah.
I wish I didn't have a tough choice to make,
That was
folks.
a production meeting.
You don't either. You don't have to make a choice between hand-breaded goodness and finger-licking deliciousness, chicken fingers and Zax sauce, or buffalo fingers with ranch sauce, traditional wings, crinkle fries, Texas toast, ranch sauce, 22-ounce Coca-Cola Freestyle drink. It's called Traditional Wings and Things.
Yeah.
It's from Zaxby's.
And it's great.
It's fantastic. I'm trying not to have anything orange this week, but I got to draw the line at Zax sauce. Still have to be able to enjoy my Zax sauce.
Oh, you don't eat anything orange the week of the Clemson game?
No.
Or Florida,
Nope.
I assume?
Nope.
Oh,
Gotta keep it real.
That's odd.
Gotta keep it real.
Yeah, but Zax sauce, you can't go away from Zax
I
sauce.
can't. Come on,
That's
man.
the best stuff. That is, like the chicken fingers are great anyway. They really are.
Yeah.
They're tasty. I'm not just saying that because they help us out here. I mean, we stand by what
By the way, did you get the check cleared the other day? You see the check from Zaxby's?
Holy moly, did I see it? I drove up in it. But, man, that Zax sauce, they're good enough to eat by themselves, but that Zax sauce, I think you could put even bad food in it.
Yeah.
And it still makes all the difference in the world.
I think if I ever get married, which is probably never going to happen, I do want a fondue fountain with Zax sauce.
Oh, at the wedding?
Yeah.
Or just in your house?
Well,
in your
maybe if
marital
I
home?
don't get married, maybe we just make it happen to where I have the fondue fountain in my house. It just dispenses Zax sauce.
Yeah, that wouldn't be weird. That'd be pretty cool. Okay. People would love to come over.
Something that doesn't involve Florida State kind of does involve Florida State. As we time travel, you talk about the future. I want to go back 2 days to the past. One of these things that Willie's doing, and I don't buy into a lot of this, and I think it's kind of hokey. You folks probably don't, and it's fine. We can agree to disagree. Him singing the fight song after the games, people like that. I'm like, whatever. It's not a bad thing, but just I'd rather win. I'd rather have wins than these sort of things. Maybe this leads to more wins. But during the Monday Night Football game, did you see Joey Bosa, how he did he pantomimed waving a flag and then planting it on the field to kind of mock Baker Mayfield, who had done that when they both were in college. Mayfield and the Sooners went up to the Horseshoe in Columbus and beat Ohio State. That's Joey Bosa's university. And then he planted the OU flag at midfield there. But part of me became kind of jealous because they asked him in the post game right there on the field during Monday Night Football, like, what was that all about? They kind of played dumb. They obviously knew what it was about. And he's like, I think my Ohio State people might remember that. He came up and planted the flag in the Horseshoe, and I couldn't let that happen. But it wasn't an ugly sort of thing. He kind of said it tongue-in-cheek, and it was nice and kind of a –
Yeah, Baker Mayfield better not take offense to it
Yeah.
with all the stuff he's done over the years. Right. Absolutely. He can appreciate that, I would hope.
I kind of, and I don't think that's something that Jimbo obviously never preached because I don't think he ever loved it here. It would be cool to see guys in the NFL really, truly love this university. And not just by saying, Timmy Jernigan, Florida State University on Monday Night Football. It'd be kind of cool when Derwin's healthy, when he plays the Broncos, to, like, do something and talk crap to Bradley Chubb.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't mind if he did something. You don't have to take a penalty for your team, but, like, you could do something to maybe, let him remember that he spit on your team's logo. Maybe go out there and you just kind of, cleat up the Bronco logo at midfield if you're Derwin or something.
Or do the Terrell Owens thing when he went to the Cowboy Stadium and just did the pose at midfield after a touchdown. Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I don't think that's to insinuate that Florida State players don't have the same pride as Ohio State players do. By and large, they just, Joey Bosa is a really big name, and that happened in that moment. I think there was a maybe last year, Ramsey and Derwin, after they played each other, one of them's like, if you're a DB in high school and you're not going to Florida State, what are you doing? So I think there's some pride there. It is what it is. There's nothing to really be.
There's some scores to settle out there.
There definitely are, and right now there's not a ton to be proud of at this. I mean, you could say the same thing about. There isn't recently, and you could say the same thing about all the Miami guys in the NFL. Like they're not spouting it. It's not like the Warren Sapp days when he was spouting how good Miami was and we're the best and making fun of Derek Brooks when they had belts going on at the Bucs. I mean, those Miami guys aren't saying a lot either right now.
Well, I'm talking about you got to sell some scores, man. Derek Nottie, you're with the Chiefs. You're going to play the Broncos. Nottie was here in 2017, right?
Yeah.
But he's such a nice guy. But Derek, do something. I don't know, man. Do something, hashtag.
Well, they're not on the same team. Cam Irving maybe could do something, even though he wasn't here in 2017.
Yeah.
He'll actually have a chance to maybe
Cam. Let him
do
know.
something to Bradley
Let him know,
Chubb.
Cam.
And didn't Chubb hurt himself, though?
Yeah, you're right. He's out.
Well, go over to him on the sideline. Throw something at him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say spit on him because that's very disrespectful and it's
We
an
turn the other
fight.
cheek. We turn the other cheek.
But he did spit on your field, on your logo.
It, man. Yeah.
So, people wouldn't be that upset if you went and spit in his general direction maybe.
Also, Bounty is out on the North Carolina kicker from 16 that ran around Doak and was just doing the
what's
chop.
that kid doing now?
I don't know. But
yeah, you're right.
The
bounty is out forever and always on that kid.
Throw a beer on him if you see him, folks. I'll comp you your beer.
Right.
Later on,
whatever you get when you go to jail.
Yeah. Later on today, we'll have Larry Williams coming up here shortly. Talk about the game, the Clemson game. Obviously, we are here at the Southside Studios. Just got done wrapping up the War Chant Report with Gene Williams, founder and administrator of WarChant.com, Jeff Cameron of ESPN Radio, also Seminole Headlines. Hour number 2. Can't do it. My voice, my throat's killing me.
Sure.
And Corey also did too. This is a very grueling day for Corey. He was up early at practice, did interviews at practice, observed practice, went and filmed headlines, sat on the desk and carried those two aforementioned gentlemen during the entire broadcast, and is now doing this show for all of you. And then he's got to go be a father 4 hours away. So
it's again, I don't have a cape, and if I did, I probably wouldn't wear it a lot. Just every now and again, but I'm doing what heroes do.
I wish you'd just be a little bit more uplifting than as a hero, but maybe you're like a misanthrope. There was a lot of cynicism coming from that.
I'm
That's
like one of those dark heroes.
Okay,
Batman. He's not a total good guy. You know what I mean? His alter ego isn't a great person. He's a womanizer. He's a billionaire. I'm one of those heroes. But in the headlines was the same way when we recorded that. It's just hard to be excited about the prospect of winning this game. But it doesn't mean you're not hopeful that you can see some positive signs. Like somebody asked us on headlines, one of the questions was, did you have more hope going into that 2009 Florida game, Tebow's last game, or this game?
Oh, this one by far.
And I said this one easily because that one, number one, you knew what that team was already. It was the 12th game of the year. You knew they had no shot at all. And, in fact, one of the stories I brought up on headlines, so apologize if you already heard it. But before that game, like the Wednesday before that game, we got Greg Reed, and, he would say anything. And even though he's a freshman that year, we were allowed to talk to freshmen. How about that? And he predicted that he was going to return a punt for a touchdown. And it became kind of a little mini news story. Greg Reed runs his mouth before the Florida game. And I jokingly said to Iron, it wasn't even a joke. I'm like, dude, he's not going to have a chance to return a punt because they ain't punting.
Right.
We've watched this defense. And I was like, come on. I'm like, no, what are the odds that they're going to punt? What's the over-under? I'll give you an over-under of one punt for Florida. And he's like, ooh, that's a really good number. And that's exactly what it was. They pooch punted. I think it might have been their first or second possession. They got a fourth down at like Florida State's 39 and pooch punted. And that was the only punt they had the whole game. So that team we knew had no shot.
Right. Not
even a shot to like do anything that would impress you. Like EJ was playing, Ponder was out, so there was no hope in that regard. And you just knew that it was just a lamb to the slaughter. And that was the last game of the year. So it was Bowden's last regular season game as the head coach. Just that it had fallen off the rails and there was no hope. This one you feel like there might be a trajectory in the other direction, maybe going up a little bit. So there's hope. Not hope that you'll win necessarily, but hope that you'll see some things and be excited and they'll be competitive.
They'll score points. Like this offense will score points.
Yeah, they should score some points, yeah.
So
it should be. I guess it is. Is it the best offense they've played, Clemson's played?
Absolutely.
Probably?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so,
man.
Right?
Yeah.
Statistically and talent-wise, I think it's just that offensive line. You just can't believe because of that offensive line.
Where did this all come from? I thought we were actually kind of high on the offensive line.
Never high on it.
Or encouraged.
Encouraged because they're better. But it's like, man, it's just like, an uncoordinated kid that learns to dribble a little bit. And you're like, oh, there you go, big guy. Or like if Brady puts a ball in play again. They'll be like, oh, there you go, Brady.
Brady, I love you, man. Don't take that from me,
He doesn't need to listen to us. We don't want it to be like that, man. It's just so I'm tired of being patronizing and condescending to the offensive line. Well, they played better. They only gave up 8 sacks. Like, it's just like, fix it. Somehow, some way, fix it.
Dude,
Until you do, you can't be good.
They're scoring 30 points a game.
I know. Imagine if they had an offensive line, they'd be scoring 50, and they'd be 5-0.
I don't blame the offensive line for any of their losses.
I mean, no. Maybe the Virginia game to a little bit. Yeah, but they were fine in the Virginia game. But they're not dominant, man. They're just not. You're allowed to be dominant, though. You're allowed.
Not after what they were last year.
But not what they've been for 5 years. It's like, is that the goal? Is that going to happen in our lifetimes? That Florida State will have a dominant offensive line again?
I don't know, because I don't think Randy Clemson will be here long enough to establish.
But he's not the only good offensive line coach. Are these guys going to start being developed? Or are they going to get some just bad dudes to come in here and lead an offensive line? When are they going to have a number one pick? When are they going to have another first-round pick on the offensive line?
Dante Lucas, 2 years.
That would be great. And join him with somebody. Get some people to join him.
Well, again, right now the recruiting is not – again, talk about how tough it is to evaluate high school linemen. But currently, again, they've got 5 commitments, I think, and they're all 3 stars, and only one of them weighs over 300 pounds. So, again, these are all, to a certain degree, projects most likely. Although I think Manny Rogers, there might be some sort of sleeper potential with him.
All right. Well, you never know. I mean, you just don't know. Those stars really don't mean all that much when it comes to linemen. That's not just sour grapes. It really is true. Like, a lot of those Wisconsin guys.
Well, who's the best offensive lineman you think on the team right now?
Dante.
4-star, Rivals 250, IMG kid.
Sure.
Yeah,
but Bavion was the number 2 center in the country when he came out. He was a 4-star. Jawan was a 4-star. A high 4-star. Like they got guys in that one class that were all supposed to be really good.
I'd rather swing and miss on those guys than swing and miss on.
Sure, but my point is you will swing and miss on those guys too. Right. And there will be a 2 or a 3-star that becomes especially
Brian
at that
Stork.
position.
Yeah.
Or like I said, a Joe Thomas. Wisconsin never gets like 5-star super duper offensive linemen, and every year they're putting 3 guys in the draft. Just go kidnap them if you have to.
Well, they have the time. Like they have their whole. They have the foundation. The I don't want to say culture, but they have things set up there to where I think these kids can redshirt and get developed. I think I think Ira's mentioned it a few times, and I've parroted it. Is just the fact that the 2018 recruiting class, those like the Christians, haven't done anything yet, but they're still young. I mean, I don't think anywhere else that has a developed offensive line like an Ohio State or an Oklahoma or a Texas is like down on a kid his second year of being on campus and not really contributing as the way that Florida State kind of is right now because they're just looking for solutions anywhere they can get it. But, yeah, I think the offense will do fine. I do have concerns about the defense just because I still don't know how good of a secondary this team really is.
Oh, it's not.
Which
it doesn't make sense. I do think some of those guys are talented. I think some of those guys will play in the league. But collectively, together, they don't make enough plays. And maybe this is the game that turns it around. But you wouldn't think, against these particular guys and that quarterback, that this is the game where the FSU secondary steps up. It could be exposed, and you hope it isn't. Or they might play the Virginia zone.
Well, if those three guys can play 65 reps, Corey Durden, Robert Cooper, and Marvin Wilson, I mean, I think you probably feel at least good about – because, I mean, ATN, I think they kind of kept ATN bottled up until the fourth quarter. I think he might have busted off a long run against them. So
yeah, they've been good running defensively against the run the last 3 weeks. Really good.
So, I mean, again, my biggest concern is the pass defense against a pretty explosive offense. But, I mean, potentially explosive offense. It really hasn't been explosive since they played Charlotte 2-3 weeks ago or whatever. And I feel good about this offense going up against any defense in the nation. So, I don't feel the abject sort of doom just looming over this program as they head into that game. Like, I'm kind of excited to a certain degree to see how they perform in that sort of setting. And then that's the micro look at it. But the macro look to me, though, is that, they will play tough. But, like, how much will that really matter in terms of us continuing to evaluate Willie Taggart?
So, yeah, I think you can prove to your fan base, which is really all that, like we talked about. I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme of things what we think of this program. It matters what the players think. And I think the players, no matter what happens on Saturday, will think it's going in the right direction. I really do truly believe that. But it would help the fans if they could see some growth and see you fight and play hard and not be blown off the field. You shouldn't be blown off the field by this team. They're not that much more talented than you. You were blown off the field last year. It was an embarrassment. Don't get embarrassed again. Show some pride. Play hard. Make some plays. You're allowed to make plays against good teams. Heck, you're allowed to pull upsets. That happens.
But how can you be so – how can you have such just lack of optimism for the result and then be like, don't get blown out?
No, I'm not saying don't get blown out necessarily. I mean, if you're in a game and it's 31-17 or 31-14 in the fourth quarter, and then you just get exhausted because you've run so many plays and they wear you down and they scored 2 touchdowns late, it's like the Blackman game up there 2 years ago. I mean, they were down 17-0, and they were on the verge of getting blown out.
Absolutely.
But then they cut it to 17-14 and had a chance. And I don't remember what the final score was, 38-17 maybe, or 38-14.
They ended up covering Clemson. I know Clemson covered.
So it looked like a 24. It looked like a worse game than it was. If you can just have Trevor Lawrence taking snaps in the fourth quarter, man, sorry, I know that's awful to hear as a Florida State fan, but that's a win. You've made that team play 4 quarters. If you don't have Dabo Swinney running kid trying to score touchdowns on you like last year, like just those kind of steps, just incremental, man. But, at least show you can play at their level for more than, 4 drives last year? Show you can play at their level. You can make plays. Do it. Do it, kids. Do it.
Are we still talking about incremental steps next year?
No. That ship has sailed. When you're in year 3, it's not, well, at least they only lost by 19 points instead of 40 points. It's like, no. By year 3, it needs to be your winning games, and maybe winning games comfortably. That's what maybe you get to. Hopefully we'll be at a point one day when we're complaining about wins, like over ACC teams, not ULM. Maybe you get to a point where you're complaining about how like Clemson fans are right now or Clemson media. So that's no, I don't think you're doing this next year. I just think last year was so bad, bad.
It was.
It was an awful experience, and it was an awful football team. Awful. Genuinely could have been 2-10. Just an awful football team. And got embarrassed almost weekly at the end of the season. So you seem to have gotten past that now. You don't really want that to seep back in, where it's not just that you lose by a big number, but you just are embarrassingly non-competitive, which the second half of that game against Clemson was last year.
I really don't fear that, man. I think that.
But would you have reservations if you saw that? If you saw them just completely kind of fold once they got down by 2 or 3 scores?
I really wouldn't. The only reservation I had is what we talked about on the show yesterday, is that if Willie really is pushing this around the program and the locker room as this is our national championship game this week. Like, this game is, we can do whatever we want. Like, you can play the nobody believes in us thing. I'm totally fine with that. Hey, listen, like, I would play clips from Cameron or from us or from any other podcast, but like, they got no shot. I'd show ESPN talking about us. I'd show the line, and I'd be like, screw all those guys. Man. Like, I believe in all of you. I think if we play our hardest, if we protect the ball, if we don't make dumb penalties, man, if we play for each other, like we can go down there, we can show everybody just how good this team really can be. I'm all for that. If he's talking about, if he's talking about like those are the national champs. Like if we want to be that, we need to go take it from them. Like we beat them, we win this division. We win this division, we're going to win this conference. We win this conference, who knows what can happen?
We're going to Miami.
If you get into that sort of conversation and then you go play Clemson and then you get boat raced, then you got to go to Winston-Salem in front of 23,000 sleepy people on a Friday or a Saturday night. Then things become a little bit dicey potentially. I think at that point.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe, buddy.
Do you have any comments, thoughts about what Kendall talked about, players talked about when we spoke to them? He's never had a two-quarterback system, sounds like.
I asked him that if he'd ever had going into a game knowing he's going to play two quarterbacks. He said he couldn't remember that happening. I just think this is such a unique circumstance. Obviously, this isn't ideal. You want one quarterback that you can count on that you believe in, but you've been dealt a hand where you have two pretty good ones that both have weaknesses. And, the other guys can kind of like maybe fill in those weaknesses a little bit, fill in those gaps, the other guy. So it makes sense, in my opinion, to do it. I don't think either one of them is good enough to be anchored to either one of them, right?
Right.
And so I think that's why they're doing it. I did think it was interesting that he said he would lean on Taggart to determine reps in the game. But I would think, don't you think that in reality, I know Willie's calling the shots. But in reality, Briles is the one that says, no, Hornibrook's seeing it better. We got to stay with him.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of an interesting sort of sidebar. Yeah, it's like because I asked him about like how he's going to delegate reps in practice, and he jumped ahead to what they're going to do like in the game and how he'd lean on the head coach. I was like, yeah, really? You're the reason this whole thing is kind of floating along right now. The players, though, I only spoke to Brady Scott, and he just wasn't biting on anything in terms of this being a really bigger deal than it really is. So, because maybe they aren't talking about this in the sort of tones that I fear. I don't think Tamorian didn't sound.
What about like, Clemson?
Yeah,
no. They do seem to me anyway. It seemed like a normal Tuesday interview session to me.
Okay. All right. Very well. Hey, let's take a break.
At Birch Orthodontics, they know what a difference a beautiful and healthy smile can make in your life.
They take the time to get to know you and perform a thorough exam so that they can make an individualized treatment plan just for you or your child.
They use the latest technology in a warm and comfortable environment. So whether you are interested in traditional metal or clear braces or clear aligners, they can give you the smile you deserve. They know investing in your smile means investing in your future. And at Birch Orthodontics, they are honored to be a part of your smile journey.
Serving Tallahassee for 16 years and supporting the Knolls since forever. Check them out at birchorthodontics.com. BURCH orthodontics.com. Welcome back into Wake Up War Champ presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan, and I feel very junior and below my pay grade as I'm joined by two senior writers, our own Corey Clark, as well as Larry Williams from Taggart Illustrated. They're the Clemson website on the Rivals.com network. Larry's been covering the Tigers for a whole lot of years. He's a senior writer. That's how you get that sort of title. Larry, thanks for joining us. How are you, man?
Hey, doing great. Glad to be with y'all.
I guess I'm just going to go ahead and cut to the chase here. Rumors of the Clemson demise, are they greatly exaggerated? A lot of folks seem to think that this team is not playing nearly as well as they should have or anywhere near their ceiling or their potential. Is the team that has taken the field the past 5 Saturdays, or I guess maybe a Thursday on one of those against Georgia Tech, is that sort of the team that's going to continue to incrementally grow, or do you see potential for a big jump as they come out of this bye week?
My guess is that this is somewhat similar to the movie we've seen plenty of times in recent years with Clemson. Dating back to 2016 when they won it all. In the middle of that season, they had some scares. They really should have lost to NC State at home. They did lose to Pittsburgh at home, and then they sort of found themselves late in that season and were unstoppable on offense and won it all. In 2017, they go up to Syracuse and somehow lose to a not very good Syracuse team and still manage to turn it around and get to the playoff. And then last year, early in the year, they squeaked by Texas A&M early in the year, and they're really should have lost to Syracuse. Well, maybe not should have, but we're very fortunate to beat Syracuse at home, and then it sort of becomes Trevor Lawrence's offense after that, and they didn't look back. And I think the surprising thing to me and plenty of other people is that it's the offense that's sort of trying to find itself. A lot of people thought that it would take some time for the defense to grow up after losing all those studs on the defensive line and at linebacker. But honestly, had they had the drop-off on defense that a lot of people anticipated, and if they were struggling right now on defense as much as some people thought they would, as they experienced all that attrition, they probably wouldn't be undefeated because the defense has really carried them to a large degree during some occasions, especially their last game in Chapel Hill. So, I think this offense is still sort of trying to deal with, and I bring back that 2016 example. Those guys that came back after playing Alabama in 15, they just sort of wanted to hit the fast forward button to the playoff, and they were sort of going through the motions a little bit the first half of that year. And I'm talking about Deshaun Watson, Mike Williams, Wayne Gallman, Jordan Leggett, others. And it sort of took the loss to Pitt for them to really be galvanized and for them to, sort of find that supreme focus. And I think part of what we're seeing is what happens when you have, a bunch of young college kids who spend 6 months, hearing about how great they are and how great they're going to be after you beat Alabama by 4 touchdowns. And so I don't know if I don't think it's their demise. I don't know if I would not characterize it as that at this point. But it's going to be really interesting to see after a bye week sort of how they, how sort of different of an approach they have, and whether these sort of offensive, I guess, sputters they've been having are more of a long-term trend or something they just look back at as they look back at similar sort of but brief bits of struggle in recent years.
Larry, is it as simple as Trevor Lawrence just isn't playing as well as he did last year? We all know he's supremely talented, but maybe he just hasn't had he hasn't been nearly as good as he was last year, and that's why the offense is, it's struggling in quote marks, but why the offense hasn't been as dynamic early on as we expected it to be? Is it mostly him?
Yeah, I think you could make that case for sure. Just looking, simply at Lawrence's statistics, he's thrown 8 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. He threw 4 interceptions all of last year. I think he's just been sort of off at times, and that's surprising to see because he was never off last season. And you just assume that the trajectory is going to continue to go up in his second year, and that has not been the case, at least not yet. I think another part of it is just the price of again, what happened in the playoff. You become a much bigger target, not only for opposing players sort of motivationally, but also schematically to opposing defensive coordinators. And they have faced a couple of good ones in Bateman from North Carolina, Jay Bateman, who was at Army previously, his group at Army kind of shut down Kyler Murray a year ago in Norman, Oklahoma. And then also Mike Elko from Texas A&M. And so I think it's just extra time. But part of it is extra time defensive coordinators are using to scheme up things that Clemson hasn't seen. There was a lot of stuff North Carolina did, I think, that either they hadn't seen or that they just struggled to react to in the moment on the fly. And so I think that's part of it. I think the coaches, it's also been an adjustment for their play callers as well. But again, I don't think Lawrence has been bad. I just think, again, the bar was set so high last year with what we became accustomed to seeing that it's almost shocking to see him airmail a corner post or or hitting an opposing defensive back right in the jersey, which he did against Syracuse. So, he was a major Heisman favorite coming into the year, and now he is almost totally off the radar. So that has to be sort of exhibit A when you're trying to examine exactly why this offense hasn't been the absolute machine that most of us expected.
And I think it's all relative to expectations too, and the later in the season. Like, I don't think anybody on this show, probably most people listening to this show, don't think that Florida State they don't think Florida State's going to win on Saturday. Trevor Lawrence could throw every pass left-handed, and Clemson has a pretty good chance of winning that game because the defense is so good. But if Clemson is going to repeat, it's not okay. The offense has to find itself to beat Florida State. The offense can still be just kind of average or a little bit above average and beat Florida State, probably pretty comfortably. But it can't beat Alabama or Georgia perhaps or Ohio State or Oklahoma if the offense continues to look like this, right? So that's why I think coming off a bye week and kind of a reset, how do Clemson fans, how do Clemson media, players, are they putting a lot of stock into this game just to see what was learned in the bye week and what are they looking for?
I think that it's really interesting. Dabo said something at his press conference today. I think the context was talking about sort of the naysayers on the outside, or Clemson, falling in the polls, and some people no longer regarding them as the best team in the country, and this and that. And one of the things he said was interesting. He said, if you're playing your best football this time of year, you're probably in trouble. And his point was that, everything sort of in his mind, you plod through the season and you do everything it takes to be playing your best football toward the end of the year. And of course, Clemson has done such a splendid job of that in recent years. And so I don't think anybody's really alarmed. I don't know if it's that strong right now. I think more, like I said, surprised, but still pretty confident that they're going to get it going on offense, that they just have way too many weapons, both Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, one of the best running backs in the country, and then all those freaks on the outside at receiver. I think where it starts is getting their running game back going. Their numbers overall are really good, but against North Carolina, they just were not able to get in rhythm enough to pound the run as much as they like to. And then what they really love to do after establishing the run, I mean, that opens up a lot of their play action, vertical passing game and all that. And so I think what everybody is expecting is for them to get that running game going, and then for their offense to be in sync. I mean, they had some really bad false start penalties at North Carolina that sort of derailed drives. Travis Etienne lost a fumble when it looked like they were about to take over in the second quarter, and it sort of changed the momentum of the game because North Carolina turned around and drove down for a touchdown after that. And so I just think Dabo Swinney wants to see a clean game from his offense. Like I said, it's kind of a jolt to see Trevor Lawrence and the offense not playing clean because we hardly ever saw that last year. But I don't think he or anybody else is really panicking. I think they believe they've done a lot of good things. I think they're trying to remind themselves, though, of what it looked like last year when their best players were playing at their best.
Last thing for me, Larry, does the FSU game, does it still matter to people around the program? I mean, does that name, do those three letters still echo or resonate at all? Or is there a chance that they could overlook Saturday's contest?
I don't think it's to the point where they're going to overlook it simply just given the circumstances, and they were extremely lucky to win their last time out. Then they had a bye week, and then they spend 2 weeks hearing about how they're no longer the top team in the country. You better believe Dabo has wasted no effort play in Paul Feinbaum and other national voices on video for them to point out, hey, they're doubting you guys, and hey, the chip on the shoulder is back, and all that. I'll say though that around the Clemson community, at least, it has been very bizarre to see the decline of Florida State football, because I mean, hell, it was only 5 years ago that Jimbo Fisher and Florida State, I mean, that was the biggest obstacle that stood in Clemson's way, or the most formidable obstacle. I mean, I remember, you were not unreasonable back then to say there's no way Clemson is going to ever eclipse that program. And then now here they are. Not only is Jimbo Fisher not there, but they've just plummeted last year, and they're still sort of trying to find their way. It's bizarre. I don't think that there are many Clemson fans out there pining for the old days of when Florida State would come to Death Valley and hang 50 on them. But it is strange to not just have Florida State as sort of playing second fiddle in the division, but just to have them so far in your rearview mirror that they're not even really that competitive, based largely on what happened last year in Tallahassee. It's a surreal sight. And so, but I think that I don't think that's going to result in a bunch of empty seats or people look. I mean, what the heck are they going to look forward to, guys? I mean, the game at Louisville, that's just sort of I think it's kind of a microcosm right now of where the ACC is, that there are no legit, obvious challengers in terms of the ACC producing a second top 10 type team that can give Clemson some problems on a regular basis. And so I think long term there is that challenge. If this keeps up, if the complexion of the ACC remains the same for the next couple of years or so, it's good. It really will be a challenge for Dabo and folks to keep Clemson fans, coming to games and packing the stadium and getting excited over, games that have 30-point spreads going in. But I think right now in the moment, even though Florida State has gone through plenty of struggle this year, I think there will be some excitement and some anticipation for this game coming up Saturday.
Yeah, it is crazy that it was 5 years ago Florida State beat Clemson with its backup quarterback.
Yeah.
That was a really good Clemson team that kind of choked the game away with Deshaun Watson.
Right.
And at that point, I remember leaving that stadium going, man, if I was a Clemson fan, I'd be like, we're never going to beat them again. We couldn't even beat them without Jameis Winston. So
yeah, the thing is, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Corey. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, if I think back to that game, yes, it was a devastating loss for Clemson because, they just gave it away. The one snapshot in my mind is the ball on the 1 yard line and the center snapping it like 30 feet over the head of the.
You didn't even get point. They missed the field goal after that. They didn't even. They had first and goal at the 1 and didn't score a point.
Yeah, but I'll say I don't know if the takeaway was necessarily from Clemson fans, we're never going to beat them again, simply because Deshaun. That's the first.
Well, that's a good point.
He did not start that game, but that's when it became obvious he was the guy. Like, this is the future. And I remember, I think Kirk Herbstreit was calling that game, and he's like, wow, this is going to be the face of college football here, this number 4. And so I think that even though it was devastating for Clemson fans, I think they walked away going, okay, this is the dude, and, the Jameis thing, he was going to be gone after that season anyway. And so I think there was still plenty of optimism from Clemson folks leaving there, even though it was yet another episode of Clemson finding a way to sort of fall on its face on the verge of a major victory.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at the two programs, it's not just that Clemson, like Florida State was ahead of Clemson, but, the 2012 Clemson team was, I think, a 12-win team. The 13 team was a 12-win team. The 14 team was very good as well. Florida State was ahead of Clemson, but not by much. And we all thought that Florida State would keep cruising along and maybe Clemson slowly catches up. None of us knew that Florida State was just going to put it in reverse. And so not only did Clemson speed by Florida State, but Florida State was reversing in the wrong direction. And I think that's when you talk about the ACC, I think that's exactly what has to happen. Florida State has to get better. This conference can't be this conference football-wise with Florida State being like this. And I do think, I don't think it's going to play out much on Saturday, but I do think Florida State, there are signs that they're getting better. They really should be 4-1 or 5-0. They blew the Boise, just flat out blew it. And I think if they played Boise State this week, they'd beat Boise State by 2 touchdowns. I think they are a much better team than what we saw that first game. They're not good enough to beat Clemson yet. But don't you think, and this is our last question, don't you think for the good of the conference, and for the good of Clemson, for that matter, maybe, moving forward, Florida State needs to get at least somewhat back to what it was? This needs to be a rivalry again, right?
Oh yeah, and I include Miami in there as well. I don't buy this. That it's going to take North Carolina or NC State or even Virginia Tech. One of those guys needs to rise up. No. It's got to be the blue bloods and the ones that are in position to recruit like gangbusters. And who is that? That's freaking Miami and Florida State. And there's no excuse for what Miami's going through and has gone through for a long time. And there's really no excuse for what has gone on at Florida State. I do think, I said a few minutes ago, I don't think Clemson fans are exactly crushed that they're not having to fight like mad to beat Florida State, or that's no longer this just death struggle every year. But I think most reasonable Clemson fans do acknowledge, look, we in the ACC need someone to emerge. Because for respectability to come to the ACC, Clemson can benefit from that as well, even though they certainly have not suffered a whole lot in recent years from there being no legit challenger. But I think, and I don't think this is a unanimous take, but I have heard Clemson fans say, man, I would like to be more, there to be more suspense going into some of these games in the ACC. Now, I would argue, I'm not a fan, but if I were, it wouldn't bother me at all. Winning every game by 50 points, that would be preferable to, having to sweat through a couple of games a year, honestly. That would be my position if I were a fan. But I can certainly understand the point of view of, hey, look, in this era where conference sort of respectability, means so much, and my conference is better than your conference, and this and that, and it certainly plays out in the minds of the playoff selection committee and all that. I think it's legit to take that position. And let's be honest, guys, if North Carolina wins that game in Chapel Hill last week, Clemson is looking at the very real possibility of being left out of the playoff, largely because of that crappy ACC schedule. So I understand it, and just as a follower of college football and as a follower of the ACC, I hope that one or both of those schools, Florida State and Miami, are able to pick it back up, because, man, I just watched that Bowden Dynasty video a few weeks ago, and that gave me goosebumps, that was really cool. And the same thing with, the U and all that. That is just, that stuff makes up the fabric of college football. And even though Clemson is currently on one of those runs right now that is just as impressive and may end up being more impressive, it would still be cool to have more of it.
And Larry, deep down's rooting for Florida State over Miami, everybody, so chill out. But do check out his podcast, the Clemson Dubcast. He's Larry Williams from Tiger Illustrated, senior writer, joining us here on Wake Up War Chant. Thanks so much for your time, Larry. Appreciate it, man.
All right, guys. You have a good week.
You're listening to Wake Up War Chant, low-carb beer for the Seminole soul. Back to Aslan and Corey.
Oh, look at that. We're back. It's a third segment. Holy cow. What are you doing, Aslan? I said I'd play phone calls. I promise you I'd play phone calls. Let's play a phone call.
Hey, guys. Dirk from Claremont. Love the show. 2 questions real quick. Number 1, last weekend, Kirk Herbstreit said the team he was most disappointed in, I believe, was Florida State. What was he thinking coming from last season? How could he be disappointed in what's happening so far? I think they're starting to right the ship a little bit, so why is he disappointed? Second question is, quarterback for Clemson, can we start calling him Touchdown Jesus? Clemson's Touchdown Jesus. Or Touchdown Samson. Have a great day.
Oh, Dirk and Claremont. Yeah, I don't know what Herbie was thinking. Just maybe he thought with Kendall Browse here that they would be 5-0 going to this game against Clemson. Or maybe he was just trying to pander to the Gator crowd at game day. Touchdown Jesus, not a bad one. I remember calling Jameis to my coworkers in Mississippi like college football Jesus, and then like 2 weeks later everything broke and everybody got mad at me for even referencing the deity. So I probably won't.
I mean, Lawrence is a Georgia kid that plays in Clemson, South Carolina. So how about Touchdown Cletus? Right? That's a better name, right? Not Touchdown Cletus. He's country bumpkin, I think. I think he's from my neck of the woods up there in Georgia. And, I assume I don't think I've ever heard him talk. Does he have an accent? Who knows? But, yeah, Touchdown Cletus because of where he's from and who he plays for.
We had another phone call from Travis over in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He says he's been a Florida State fan for the last 25 years. He's originally from Louisiana. We love you, Travis. You left us 2 phone calls. One was 2 minutes long, the other one was 51 seconds long. Just can't sift through all that. He wants to kind of know what happened to Xavier Lee. I don't know. Xavier Lee's all right, though. I think he's out in Phoenix, Arizona. I think he's got himself a good-looking young lady and a child. That's always a cool thing. He laments the price of hotel rooms. I agree. Yeah, hotel rooms, it's very expensive. Corey, we're done. Great job out of you, man. You go enjoy the Bravos game. I'll figure something out. We'll put a show out for the people on Thursday. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks again to Larry Williams from Taggart Illustrated for joining us. Thank you for listening to Wake Up War Chant presented by Zaxby's.
Unlike fanny packs, bowl cuts, and troll dolls, the sensation is back, only at Zaxby's. The Sensation Salad and the new Sensation Filet Sandwich features hand-breaded chicken, Asian slaw, wonton strips, and citrus vinaigrette, and both are served with an egg roll. The Sensation Salad and the new Sensation Filet Sandwich meal for a limited time only at Zaxby's. And skip the line when you order ahead on the Zaxby's app or on Zaxby's.com.